Yeah, so for me, the wine shop kind of came about basically because I jumped into the wine business by chance and because I found it really interesting. When we started the shop, we didn't exactly have like money or a budget for like building out a space. A lot of what we did, we kind of put together ourselves. We had somebody build the bar. It's marble, which most people would probably say you shouldn't put marble on a like in a wine bar because it's going to stain. But we really like the idea of like the older bars you see in Europe that are like kind of scratched and stained and whatever from time. We wanted it to have that feel to it. But yeah, a lot of the individual furniture pieces, like the yellow couch was Abigail's grandfather's couch. And then everything else, basically Abigail designed or did herself. She spent a lot of hours up here. I mean, she like hand painted the words on that quote there. I mean, she would be like up here painting the wall. I was on the floor, sanding down the terrazzo floors, square by square. It took some time and a lot of effort, but you know, that was our option at the time, and we had the ability to like throw some effort behind it. It's kind of the benefit of, you know, your youth is you have time and energy to throw into things, even if you don't have like dollars to throw into them. And so that's more or less what we did. The shelves behind here, it's for our original warehouse. They're old pallets that we repurposed, and they all have some sort of meaning to us. And yeah, we like it. Yeah, it's something that's kind of been in the back of my mind for a little while, especially when I think about wine and why it's exciting or interesting. Just the idea of like, that wine is so many different things, and for so long it's kind of been pigeonholed into like these categories. You know, you have like, you know, Robert Parker era where everything was supposed to be like these big red wines that like everyone kind of tried to make these wines to be alike. And even to an extent now, people are trying to make wines to be fit in this box of what natural wine is. Wine is so much more than that. There's a broadness to it that's the reason it's exciting. I went to this wine school called the Culinary Institute of America, and where I kind of studied a little bit about wine. And during that time, I kind of started to learn a little bit more about wines that I hadn't really experienced in my time in Waco or in other places, really in Texas. And so that started David Mayfield Selections, which is what kind of the main business is. And so we started that in January of 2012. And just with the aim of finding wines that weren't in the Texas market, but kind of looking for things that were a little bit different. So we were looking for like wines from different areas that maybe didn't get the kind of attention we felt like they deserved, stuff that was off the beaten path, not sort of typical wines that we would see at the retail stores or restaurants in Texas. I mean, honestly, it's been really strange to see the sort of rise of natural wine, this thing we've been trying to convince people is cool for some period of time. It's been crazy and kind of cool to see people getting interested in the wines. I think obviously there's always still going to be other challenges, one of those being that, you know, natural wine doesn't have any hard definition for people. And so the things, the producers we care about as the wave of natural wine grows and has grown, you're seeing the big players that, you know, kind of scoffed at natural wine 10 years ago. Now they're adding, you know, a natural brand to their portfolio, but again, it's not something I would necessarily consider natural wine. So legally, there's not really a definition, and that's the term natural is subject to a lot of debate amongst people in the wine industry. But in France, like in the 50s, they started experimenting with making wines like their grandfathers made them, and making wine without sulfur and or using organic farming methods and those sort of things. And they kind of spawned what we think of as the natural wine movement. And so my like idea and definition of natural wine is so much connected to this movement. There's obviously ways to make wine naturally, you know, like a gigantic company theoretically can say, hey, we're gonna make wine that's organically farmed. We're not gonna add any sulfur. We're not gonna fine it, filter it, all of those things. But for me, that doesn't really fall under my understanding and feeling of what natural wine is. Natural wine has always been about the community of growers that have kind of shared knowledge and kind of grown from area to area and have brought us to where we are now. Well, there's like a natural wine aesthetic that a lot of these winemakers followed, mostly because they were friends with like designers and artists and other sort of like bohemians that exist in in rural Europe, and those people would do their labels. These guys that we work with, most of them they weren't focused on making money out of it. They just wanted to kind of like make enough to survive and live off of. They didn't like have, it was more of a philosophical pursuit than a business pursuit, I would say, for a lot of the people we work with. And our big challenge is now trying to differentiate between the sort of pseudo-natural wine wines that are in the market and things that at least I feel have value and had value back then and still have value today.